his brother to reduce the price from 3 shillings 9 to 2 shillings 6. He refused. A few days later she came in and told the story to his father, giving a description of the salesman, which could fit either Rees or the brother. It didn't take the father a second to choose, for he knew Rees couldn't have refused her. Rees developed a fine physique and was interested in physical training. He brought home dumbbells, boxing gloves and so on, and took his brothers on in friendly fights. A healthy appetite accompanied a healthy body. Dick and Rees arrived back late some nights from their various occupations. If Dick came in first, so the story goes, his mother, who had gone upstairs, would call down, "Is that you, Dick? Help yourself to a piece of tart." But if Rees preceded Dick, his mother would call down, "Is that you, Rees? There's a tart on the table. Leave a piece for Dick." But outstanding from Rees's earliest days was his consciousness of God. It seemed as if an invisible presence overshadowed him from birth, the one who, as with Paul, separated him from his mother's womb and called him by his grace. In this respect, Rees's grandparents were the most powerful influence on his early days. Their home was another little whitewashed cottage, called Pen Tywyn, up on Black Mountain. Rees said in later years that to cross their threshold was to pass from earth to heaven. They had been converted in the 1859 revival, and Rees always believed that their blessing came down to him. Something drew him in that little home. God was its atmosphere, he would say. He loved the walk from his own home down in the Aman Valley and up through the fields, leaving the houses behind one by one until an iron gate clanged behind him, and he was out in the silent spaces of the mountain slopes. In future years, those slopes were so often to be his trysting place with God. Here the only sounds that disturbed the stillness were the song of the lark, the occasional bleating of sheep, and the music of tumbling mountain stream. Over the crest young Rees would go, down the other side with the 8 miles of green Welsh valley spread out before him, until he reached his beloved Pen Tywyn, perched on the steep slopes where the moorland gave place again to hedges and fields. As he crossed the threshold, he would usually hear the sound of his grandmother's voice, reading the Bible to his invalid Uncle Dick. It reminds us of Timothy, another young lad who probably spent many an hour on another black mountain, Caradar, with Lystra at its foothills, where young Timothy was brought up under the godly influence of his grandmother Lois and his mother Eunice. Indeed, the young men of Bible times who feared and served God from their boyhood days, like Joseph and David, had a great influence on Rees. His wise father had brought the children up on Bible stories. Rees's earliest memories were of those evening readings and their effect on him. The story of the Saviour, his birth and life and death, stood out above all others, and kept him from ever taking his name in vain or daring to sin against him. Even the normal pleasures of the world had no attraction for him. He would walk miles to hear someone preach and bring him under the influence of God, but he wouldn't cross the road to hear a concert. Only once did he even attend a football match. As the crowd were shouting and bawling around him, he felt it was not the place for him and vowed that, when he got his feet out of it, he would never go to such a place again. He never did. The Apostle Paul makes that striking statement about serving God, as did his ancestors, with a clear conscience. Rees seemed another example of it. He said years later, "I didn't run into sin. There was always a restraint on me. It seems that some people are much more sensitive than others, even before conversion. I marred my conscience once when my father sent me to deliver some shoes to a customer, and I asked him for 1 shilling 10 pence, when the correct price was 1 shilling 9 pence. I spent the penny on apples. Although I confessed my sin to my father, I never got it out of my mind, especially when I saw apples. I had marred my conscience. Of course, because it had that effect on me, it kept me from anything bigger. But it also had another effect, from which he had to be disillusioned later, for he added, I thought in those days that probably I had been born with a good nature. He became a member of the chapel at 13, resolving, according to the light he then had,